This is the story of a girl named Catelia, whose parents were killed when she was a child. The story begins in Colombia, where we see a meeting between two gangsters, Don Luis and Fabio. During this meeting, Fabio expresses his desire to leave the criminal life behind. However, this will be difficult for him, as he is a bookkeeper for a powerful cartel. He begins to hand over everything to Don Luis and tells him that he can no longer work with them. Fabio then gives Luis a disk drive, explaining that it contains all the important information. Right after saying this, he leaves. Luis then orders his men to kill Fabio as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Fabio reaches his car, fully aware that these people are coming to kill him. He realizes he only has 1 hour to act. Fabio gathers his men and first heads to his house. There we meet his wife, Alicia, and his daughter, Catelia. Fabio goes to his daughter and hands her a memory card. He says, "Keep this safe. This memory card is your passport to America. Once you get there, go to Chicago. You'll find my brother, Emilio. If anything happens to us, you'll live the rest of your life with him." He then gives Catelia her mother's necklace for safekeeping. The family quickly packs their belongings and heads toward the door. But just as they're about to leave, they discover that Luis has already sent his men after them. They realize the door is blocked, so they retreat. Fabio grabs a gun, and Alicia arms herself as well. They decide to leave Catelia behind to escape while they go out to fight. As Fabio engages in the fight, while Catelia watches everything unfold, she witnesses the heartbreaking moment when her mother is killed. The attackers then turn their attention to Fabio, firing at him relentlessly. Just then, a gangster named Marco arrives on the scene. Before Luis's men can harm Catelia, Marco intervenes. He stops them and starts speaking to her, revealing that he was one of Fabio's closest friends. Marco looks at Catelia and says, "I'm part of your family too. Do you know why I had your parents killed in front of you?" Catelia replies that she doesn't know. Marco then reveals, "I want that memory card. I know you have it. Will you give it to me?" Catelia nods and pretends to agree. She pulls out a knife. She stabs Marco in the hand and quickly jumps out of the window. Luis's men immediately start chasing her, but Catelia is well prepared. She had practiced this escape many times before. She skillfully descends floor by floor until she finally reaches the ground. The men search everywhere for her, but after a while, Catelia quietly emerges from her hiding spot. Just as she thinks she's safe, they spot her again. Before they can catch her, Catelia jumps into a drain. Being small, she easily fits inside, but the men chasing her can't follow. She keeps running through the drain and eventually emerges in the middle of the city. Catelia knows she must reach the American embassy to have any chance of survival. Without wasting time, she heads there. Once at the embassy, she meets with an officer and begins explaining everything step by step. After listening to her story, the officer asks, "Where is the memory card?" In response, Catelia vomits on the officer's desk from exhaustion and hands over the memory card. While doing so, she firmly says, "I need a passport. I have to go to America. That's the only way I can survive." The officers decide not to press her with further questions. Catelia is sent to America. As soon as she arrives at the airport, she's given some money. The government plans to place her in childcare, where she will be looked after. However, Catelia doesn't want to share any information about herself. So, as soon as she finds an opportunity, she escapes without anyone noticing. She knows she must get to Chicago to find her uncle. Using the address her father gave her, she travels to Chicago that same day. Once there, she delivers a letter from her father to Emilio. As soon as Emilio reads the letter, he rushes to Catelia and embraces her tightly. For the first time, Catelia breaks down in tears. She hadn't cried even once before, keeping all her pain bottled up because she had lost everyone she loved. Emilio, holding her, understands the devastating truth that his brother and his wife are gone. Emilio takes Catelia to his house, where she finally goes to sleep. She has now accepted that she is part of this family. The next morning, she wakes up and joins Emilio for breakfast. During their conversation, she asks, "The room where I slept last night, whose room was that?" Emilio replies, "It was my son's room. He's no longer with us." Curious, Catelia asks, "How did he die? Did someone kill him?" Emilio nods and says, "Yes, but the ones who took his life are no longer alive either." Later, Emilio looks through Catelia's belongings and finds a collection of her drawings. Impressed, he asks, "You draw so well? Do you want to be an artist?" Catelia shakes her head and replies, "No, I want to be a killer.
I want to be a killer.
I need to avenge my parents' deaths. I know what my purpose in life is." Hearing this, Emilio isn't surprised. He understands exactly how Catelia feels and what drives her. Emilio looks at Catelia and says, "We share the same blood, so I understand what you want to become." Catelia then asks, "Will you help me?" Emilio nods and replies, "Yes." The next day, he takes Catelia to a school and gets her enrolled. However, as soon as they leave the school, Catelia starts yelling at him. "I don't want to go to school. I told you I want to be a killer, not waste my time with books." Emilio calmly explains, "I want you to become a killer too, someone who can avenge your parents. But I want you to be the smartest, most cunning killer there is." To make his point, Emilio suddenly pulls out a gun and starts firing blindly from inside, shocking Catelia. "A killer must always stay alert," he says. "You need to know everything, every situation, every person. The sharper your mind, the longer you'll survive. A good education will make you unstoppable." Emilio finishes his explanation and puts two options in front of Catelia, a gun in one hand and a school bag in the other. "Now you have to decide," he says. "What will you choose?" Catelia takes a moment, understanding the weight of the choice. Time begins to pass as she follows the path set for her. Fast forward 15 years, and we see a chaotic scene. A police car is struck by another vehicle. It's revealed that Catelia is behind the wheel. The police manage to catch her and take her to the station. Clearly intoxicated, Catelia stumbles as they escort her inside. One officer says, "We'll lock her up for the night. She's not fit to be out there." They place her in a cell to sober up. Meanwhile, another dangerous criminal is also brought to the station. The officers carefully lock him in a separate cell and assign a guard outside. Once the station quiets down, we shift back to Catelia. That's when the truth is revealed. She's not drunk at all. Every move she made was part of a well-crafted plan. Catelia has purposely landed in this jail. Her mission is to kill the dangerous killer who's just been locked up. She begins by changing into different clothes, then quietly opens the door to her cell. Stepping out, she makes sure to redirect the security camera's view. Next, she grabs a cup of water and heads to the control room, where all the electricity for the station is managed. Once inside, she carefully places the water on a spoon, letting it drip one drop at a time. She knows exactly how long it will take for the water to travel through the ventilation system and reach the electrical controls. As the water reaches the system, it will short-circuit the power, and that's exactly what happens. The moment the water reaches halfway through the system, the lights flicker, and the entire facility loses power. A guard rushes in to reset the system, unaware of Catelia's plan. While the electricity is down, Catelia reaches the killer's cell. She quietly approaches the guard, knocking him out before taking his gun. She steps into the cell where the killer is still asleep. Without hesitation, she wakes him, ordering him to unbutton his shirt. As soon as he does, she shoots him dead. The sound of the gunshot immediately alerts the police, who rush toward the cell. But Catelia has planned for this. She quickly climbs the wall, her dark clothing helping her blend into the shadows. The police search everywhere, trying to figure out who's responsible for the murder. By the time they check her cell, Catelia has already changed back into her clothes and pretends to be asleep, still drunk as they think. No one suspects her. They believe she was simply unconscious from the alcohol. The next morning, a team of FBI agents arrives, continuing the investigation. A special agent named James Ross arrives to investigate the scene. He carefully examines everything, starting with the body. Upon closer inspection, he notices a drawing on the killer's body. James recognizes the drawing immediately, as he's seen it before. It's something Catelia always does before killing someone. She draws on her victim's body. Realizing this, James connects the dots. He orders that all information about everyone who has entered or left the building be gathered. Meanwhile, Catelia is leaving the jail. As soon as she steps outside, she calls Emilio to confirm that the man is dead and that they've received the money. At the same time, James is busy gathering all the information he can about Catelia, piecing together the investigation. James doesn't know much about Catelia, but he does know this. 22 people have been killed over the past 7 years. In each case, the killer left behind a drawing. Now James is trying to understand the motive. He concludes that the killer wants to be publicly acknowledged, likely to send a message to someone. He believes the killer is sending a signal. The news is published in the newspaper, and it quickly reaches a CIA agent named Richard. Richard grabs the paper and heads straight to Don Lewis. When Lewis sees the drawing, he immediately recognizes it as Fabio's. He orders Richard to find the killer quickly. If they don't catch him soon, Lewis threatens to cut off the money flow. Lewis is in a desperate situation, and his frustration grows. He turns to Marco, angrily saying, "She's Fabio's daughter, and she's still alive because of you. Every day she's becoming more dangerous." Lewis says she's killed 22 people in the past 7 years. She could come for us at any moment. We should be terrified. This is all your fault. If you had killed her as a child, none of this would have happened. Meanwhile, James has mobilized his team. Everyone is working tirelessly to find this elusive killer and understand the motives behind all the deaths. Catelia, on the other hand, visits her boyfriend Danny. They share a deep bond and love for each other. Later that night, they become intimate. However, when Danny wakes up in the morning, Catelia is already gone. She heads to Emilio's place. Emilio tells her, "It's all over the newspapers now. Everyone's talking about you. No one knows your name, but now everyone knows about your drawing. The danger could reach our family," Emilio says. Catelia responds, "You don't need to worry about that. I'll handle everything." Emilio then talks about his next target, William. William has taken a lot of people's money, and now everyone wants him dead. Meanwhile, James is investigating the drawing and tracks it back to Colombia. Determined to find out more, he tries to access the CIA database, but his attempt is blocked. As we shift back to Catelia, she's training 2 dogs, making them deadly so they can eliminate anyone with a single command. She's also keeping a close watch on William, preparing to enter his heavily guarded home to carry out the kill. However, getting inside won't be easy due to his strong security. Catelia, being resourceful, finds a new way in through the water. Catelia moves silently, stepping through the water where 2 sharks reside. She begins eliminating the guards one by one, sparing the girls she comes across. After a while, William wakes up and notices the familiar drawing on his body. Fear grips him as he rushes out of the room, only to find the lifeless bodies of his men everywhere. He runs toward the pool, but before he can reach it, Catelia appears in front of him and shoots him in the foot. William stumbles and falls into the pool, where both sharks quickly attack, tearing into him. Meanwhile, James reaches Richard and demands information about the drawing, but Richard remains tight-lipped. As soon as James leaves, Richard contacts Marco, saying, "This situation is getting out of hand. You need to control it or we'll all be in trouble." Elsewhere, Catelia continues her mission. Catelia returns to her boyfriend Danny, but this time, he seems distant and sad. He tells her, "I don't know anything about you, but I know everything about you." Catelia flips the situation and tension builds between them once again. Later, when Catelia falls asleep, Danny quietly takes a picture of her without her knowing. She wakes up and heads to Emilio's place. Emilio tells her, "People are looking for you everywhere. Last night, a group went to a bar, killed innocent people, and my friend was among them. All eyes are on you now, and things are getting dangerous. I can't put my family at risk anymore. That's why, from now on, our paths are separate. I've always wanted a better life for you, but you keep making things worse. We're done." Upon hearing these words, Catelia breaks down and starts crying. Meanwhile, Danny takes the picture he took of Catelia and goes to his friend, asking for all the information they can find about her. Danny's friend sends the photo to a police station, and soon it gets circulated everywhere. The connection to a police station in Colombia is uncovered. James receives the news and immediately issues a warrant for Catelia's arrest, determined to catch her no matter what. Catelia then calls Danny, asking to meet him once more. Danny confesses everything. "While you were sleeping this morning, I took a picture of you and gave it to my friend to find out more about you." Catelia is shocked upon hearing this and quickly checks the cameras around her house. She realizes that a large group of police officers has gathered outside. In a panic, she begins preparing to escape. She places a bomb on her door, grabs a sniper rifle, and leaves. The police officers approach the door, but before they can open it, a massive explosion goes off. Meanwhile, Catelia reaches the parking lot. She destroys all the cameras one by one and avoids taking the elevator. Instead, she goes to the elevator rope underneath. By this time, police officers are everywhere, but Catelia uses the chaos to her advantage and escapes. When she arrives at Emilio's house, she finds corpses scattered everywhere. Emilio is tied to a chair, and he is dead. Before his death, it's clear someone tortured him severely. Catelia breaks down in tears. Once again, her entire family is gone. She apologizes to Emilio repeatedly, saying she should have listened to him from the start. She blames herself for the deaths of so many people. But now, Catelia is determined not to stop. She vows to kill everyone responsible. Next, we see James arriving at his house. As soon as he enters, he finds Catelia standing in front of him with a gun pointed at him. She then shows him a picture of Don Lewis. She says, "I have to kill him, but the CIA is protecting him. That's why I need your help. And if you don't help me, I'll kill your entire family, just like mine was killed." After saying this, she leaves. James immediately starts searching for Lewis's location. The next day, he approaches a man and asks for information about Lewis. However, the man claims he doesn't know anything. Meanwhile, we see Catelia in a nearby building with a sniper rifle. She fires a shot near the man to scare him. James warns him, "If you don't give me the address, the next bullet will go through your head." Terrified, the man reveals Lewis's location. Once Catelia gets the address, she begins preparing. She gathers her dangerous weapons, brings her 2 dogs, and takes a truck to head out. Catelia heads to Lewis's house. Meanwhile, Marco finds out she's on her way and starts alerting everyone. But before they can fully prepare, Catelia arrives. She crashes through the wall and storms in, firing RPGs everywhere. No one gets a chance to react. Marco tries to escape with Lewis, but Catelia begins eliminating everyone in her path, killing them one by one. As Marco and Lewis watch, they realize their men are being wiped out one after another. In desperation, Marco throws a grenade at Catelia, causing a massive explosion. However, they soon realize Catelia has moved to the other side and is still taking people down. Marco grabs Lewis and tries to run, but Catelia confronts them. A fight breaks out between her and Marco. Marco is a skilled fighter, but he's no match for Catelia. She overpowers him and breaks all his bones. Finally, Catelia stabs Marco in the neck with a knife and he dies in agony. Meanwhile, during their fight, Lewis sees an opportunity to escape. He runs to the parking lot, gets into his car, and drives off at full speed. While fleeing, Lewis calls Catelia and threatens her, saying, "I'll kill you very soon. You have no idea how far my reach is." Calmly, Catelia replies, "I left 2 dogs in your car. If you can survive them, you're safe." Suddenly, the dogs attack Lewis, tearing into him. His death is excruciatingly painful. With Lewis gone, Catelia's revenge is finally complete. She then calls Danny, who apologizes to her and confesses his love again. Catelia also expresses her love for him. However, someone traces their call. Realizing this, Catelia ends the call and decides to leave town for a few days. And with that, the story comes to an end.